since the war began.
Lateral flow testing, I know it costs a lot of money, but actually it could be a false economy if we don't give people the information they need to make the right choice.
Good to speak to both of you. As always, thank you so much. Gillian Evans, Head of Health Intelligence at NHS Grampian, Professor Susan Michie from the University College London.
More than 500,000 Ukrainians have entered Romania since the war began. Those fleeing Odessa, Mykolaiv and other southern cities make for the Danube River crossing near the Black Sea. In this week's Reporter's Notebook, Jen Stout has been watching it all unfold from Isaccea on the Romania-Ukraine border.
The big barge lurches closer to the shore and the Ukrainians packed onto the open deck look at Romania. For some, their new home, and for others, a pit stop on the way to Western Europe. The ferry is called the Novio Dunum, that's the Celtic name for Isaccea, this river port at the end of the Danube. It's not a rich place, eastern Romania, by any means, but this community has rallied to help people fleeing the war. For 3 weeks they've come, tens of thousands now at this crossing, and for 3 weeks they've been met with kindness, tea and shelter. They get through border control pretty quickly. There's a remarkable degree of cooperation between charities, local groups and government agencies. But with fears of even larger numbers coming, there are tensions below the surface. It's nothing new in such situations. Local volunteers are often the first to respond to an unfolding crisis. Perhaps their networks are ad hoc, a little improvised, but they can provide a tailored response. Refugees go to guest houses where they can share kitchens, share childcare, or receive the infamous hospitality of the Dobruja region. If the government sweeps in, as governments tend to do, it could look very different. Then local volunteers speculate you could get block booking of hotels, people herded around, maybe even temporary camps. Some people think that if Odessa is bombed and numbers crossing here increase, this is the best option. They simply can't accommodate everyone here. Others strongly disagree. Mothers and kids, they say, need local places to live, integration, not camps or hotel blocks. For now they're working together, but everyone is worried about what's coming next. The fire service are here at the port every day, helping people coming off the ferry. They tell me the authorities are preparing for the worst, building a new pontoon in record time to increase transport options, and a big new marquee tent was put up on the pier a few days ago. Inside, heat lamps cast a warm orange glow, but it's an illusion. The tent is cold and everyone is wrapped up in puffer jackets and hats. Around 200 people. Some lie on beds, elderly or poorly. Kids zoom around laughing, shouting, knocking over luggage, and volunteers carry paper cups of weak, sweet tea. I'm here looking for people from Mykolaiv. It's a shipyard city 70 miles from Odessa. It's been bombed and besieged for weeks now. Horrifying stories are coming out of overflowing morgues and cluster bombs falling on flimsy housing blocks. I wander around the big tent, feeling like a pariah. I'm sorry, I say in my strangely accented Russian. I'm sorry to trouble you. I'm a journalist. Do you come from Mykolaiv? And no one shouts at me. No one tells me to mind my own damn business. They smile and shake their heads. No, Odessa, Odessa. Eventually, though, I find Tatiana. She's with her 10-year-old son, Timofey. It's just the two of them. Her husband, Oleg, is 7 years too young, at 53, to be let out of the country. He would have stayed anyway, she says, to help. Tatiana herself is 50, with thin, dark hair. She's tired. We shuffle closer to try and record the interview into my phone, over the top of the noise around us, a kid screaming and dogs barking. For 17 minutes we talk, long enough to see that her eyes are a beautiful light green. She tells me about the bombardment, the rockets that fell on her city, her home. There is no way to describe the look in her eyes without resorting to cliché. I'll just say that it was terrible and I can't get it out of my head. One evening I gave a lift to some Ukrainians, just as a huge red sun was setting against the backdrop of the ancient Machin mountains. A few days before, taking a break for the afternoon, I'd scrambled up one of these small peaks, and now I told the kids all about it, trying to make their destination sound magical and exciting. And this region is, of course, a beautiful place to visit. But these kids aren't on holiday, and their faces were creased with worry as we wound through unfamiliar streets in the dark, dogs howling all around, to the local high school where some beds had been made up for them. The mayor met them at the door. Like celebrities, one of the mums joked. As everyone is learning these days, the Ukrainian sense of humour is unbeatable. As for local Romanians, they've got their own hard-won sense of humour when it comes to geopolitics, but the war is looming horribly close. The economy here, down at the Great Danube Delta, is so reliant on tourism, and the season starts soon, but who wants to come on holiday to the border with Ukraine? Perhaps a bit of government action is needed now. Perhaps people say the guest houses could be paid to keep their refugees, rather than opening up for the season. And hosts can now get paid for the food costs, though it's a paltry £3.30 a day. It's just impossible to know. If Odessa is bombed, if a peace agreement will be reached, if Mykolaiv holds out. If. Romanians on this eastern border can only look across the Danube and wonder, what comes next?
What next indeed? Jen Stout with her reporter's notebook.